Ohioans brace for tariff impact. Welcome to Columbus on the Record. I'm Mike Thompson. Like all Americans, Ohioans are keeping at least half an eye on Wall Street and half an eye on their 401ks. President Trump's changing tariff policy has everyone guessing. While he has paused some tariffs, the trade war with China seems on. Both countries have upped their tariffs. That could double the cost we pay for products we import from China, things like mobile phones, car parts, building supplies, mugs like this one. Ohio businesses could see price increases for things they send to China, things like soybeans and airplane parts. And then there are the other Trump policies affecting Ohioans, layoffs at federal agencies, ending DEI programs, and immigrants facing uncertainty. 11 foreign OSU students reportedly have had their visas revoked in recent days. Sam Gresham, to the tariffs first. If nothing changes, we will start to see the effect of these tariffs soon. What happens when car repairs have a tariff surcharge, or the price of a TV doubles, or your iPhone doubles? What's going to be the fallout, do you think?
Well, I think some people are going to go through the roof, but I think some people are going to have amnesia. They forgot that when he was elected, he said he was going to do these things, and they just didn't believe him. The thing that hurts me the most are the people who voted for him are going to feel the greatest amount of pain. And that's unfair. If you want to take pain out on someone who can accept it. But working class people can't take 125% tariffs.
Bob, the president has said that, yeah, there will be some pain, but in the long run, it's going to pay off. Yeah. How much pain are people willing to withstand, and for how long?
I don't know. I mean, we're going to have to, the whole problem with this is it's a big wait and see. Now, I remember 8 years ago from this time, when he initially put tariffs on China, we heard the same thing. Oh my God, this is going to increase. And it didn't increase it hardly at all. And in fact, to the point where when Joe Biden came in 2021, he never took those tariffs off. So I think we just got to wait and see and he's a negotiator, so there's no guarantee that where we're at on tariffs with China today is where we're going to be with, tariffs with China in a month from now, or 2 months, or 3 months.
Jake, 125% is where the tariffs that China has put on U.S. products stands as of Friday. 145% is our tariffs on Chinese products. That's some real money now. How much can the corporations absorb without raising prices?
My suspicion is zero. I think it's going to be consumers that eat these prices. I think that we have a lot of evidence to support that. I mean, just recently I had to buy something online and paid a $5 tariff surcharge. I don't see why a corporation would eat that cost when, if every corporation is facing the same cost increases, there won't be a competition issue. Of course you pass it on to the consumer.
Joe, Ohio farmers export roughly $1 billion to China. To China. They're going to feel this pinch.
They are going to feel this pinch much like they did back in 2018. And if you remember the first time around in Trump 1.0, that farmers got subsidies to offset the problem with the tariffs. I think that there's some, from what I'm seeing and reading, there's some optimism that that would happen for farmers again. But you've got to remember, this time around, if it raises everything, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be hurt, not just the farmers, and they're going to have hands out. So it's going to be, it will definitely hurt the farmers, and Ohio would definitely feel that impact.
If you go down the list, Bob, of exports to China, farming is number one.
Yep.
And then comes airplane parts and airplanes, and then plastics, I think, and then, so should they all get subsidies too?
No, I don't think you can do that. The question is whether China is going to blink or not, because when you look at the trade with China, they rely on us a lot more than we rely on them. So the point's going to be, it's going to hurt their economy more than it's going to hurt our economy. So the game plan is to get them to the table to try to make this a more even playing field, because we haven't had that.
Sam, you've said for a long time that we need to start making things here. We've lost that as a country. Does Does this put us on that path? It's an abrupt turn onto that path, but does it put us on that path?
No, and it's not the way to do it. There's the global economy now works this way. You do that, I do this. We share it, we move forward. There are things we can't do. We can't grow coffee, first of all. So there are industries and there are plants and products we can. We need a global economy. Now, what's going to happen in the long run is people lose confidence, they don't trust you, you have uncertainty. Even, Bob, if you want to negotiate with this idiot, you don't know if he's going to do what he says he's going to do.
Yeah, but then you just slap the tariff back on if they don't.
Yeah, but this yo-yo.
The other thing that we're all watching is cuts to universities, federal government cuts to universities, Joe, and the universities are Ohio State being probably the largest here. They don't want to get on the wrong side of Donald Trump, but they've got 11 students now, foreign students, visas revoked. They don't know why, they say. They're in a tough spot. They can't really take a stand. We're assuming, because of looking at all the other universities around the country where this has happened, they've been targeting pro-Palestinian protesters. So we don't know that for sure at Ohio State, but we're waiting to see if that is the case.
That certainly appears to be the case. But the thing is, how does the university go about this now? Because they've got these students who are taken out, and they've also got programs that they've got to protect, that they want to know that there are programs that are going to stay in place. It's more than just DEI. There's other parts of it, that moving parts in a university that are affected when you start talking about DEI and those kinds of things. And all of the things coming together at once is causing some strain.
All right. There are powerful lobbies at the State House, utilities, nursing homes, teachers' unions, and now you can add librarians to that list. As part of its original budget proposal, the Ohio House proposed cutting funding for libraries, and they wanted to eliminate a provision that guarantees libraries get a set percentage of the state budget. Well, librarians and their supporters loudly complained. House Republicans partly backed down. They increased funding for libraries, but the budget plan still eliminates that guarantee that libraries get a set percentage of the budget. Jack Zuckerman, the libraries don't make up a large portion of the state budget. So why this fight in the legislature over libraries? Why go after them in the first place?
I think it's about stability and it's about flexibility. In the legislature's case, it's about flexibility. They don't want to be tethered to this. I think the number is 1.75% of all tax receipts go into the library as is. That's a figure that increases year over year as receipts are going to increase. They say, who says our next General Assembly or we today need to fund this much? They proposed a funding level that is above what the libraries currently get, but below what they would be projected to get under future years' tax receipts. And like you've hinted at, I think they've learned that they touched a third rail. I mean, every community has these close ties to their library, and they came out in force and really flooded these poor lawmakers' phones and emails.
Undercurrent here, Joe, is the social wars, the culture wars. You know, you had the drag queen story hours, you had the LGBT books and displays at libraries, and there was one message sent out by a lawmaker, apparently by his intern. How much of that is going on here, the culture war?
Well, there is a big culture war going on at the State House, and the libraries are no exception to it. It's basically in schools and everywhere else as well. But I think the thing that, if you look at these libraries, they really came out. Their people came out. The lawmakers were hearing from them. And a lot of communities, the library is the heart of the community. I know where I live in Delaware County, there's a library levy, and libraries are very popular. So, you know, it's when you start messing with the library, people, you know, they get kind of upset. Don't mess with the librarians, Bob.
Yeah, well, Mike, full disclosure, I'm working with the Delaware County Library on their levy, so I'm a little biased. I'm voting for it.
Everyone loves the library.
Yeah, I know.
Let's just say that.
Hey, with property taxes and what's happened recently, I'm concerned now. Here's the problem, and I said this on the show earlier this year. we cannot, in this day and age, no one or no institution can assume what their funding level is going to be. I mean, things are all different now, not only on a federal level, but a state and local level. And I think everybody, whether they're universities, libraries, whatever, fire departments, they need to not assume they're going to get the same amount of money.
Bob, that's wrong. There's more than enough money out there. What people are trying to do.
People feel they're overtaxed as it is, especially with the revaluation.
But this is state money.
Yeah.
So if you cut the state money, you're going to have to work on more levy campaigns.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, and get it, but it's all tax dollars, and it's a matter of how much can you tax people? I mean,
It's not
there is a
all
limit.
tax dollars. There are different types of taxes that people have to pay.
Yeah.
The scenario of the groups that are in charge now is reduce the cost for the rich man. Now, when you reduce the cost for the rich man, who pays the price? Working people. Poor people pay the price. That's not fair. The system was designed when people can't help themselves, government is supposed to help them.
Yeah, they're not. The legislature is not out to try to make rich people's lives easier. In fact, when you look at the political bases of both parties, the Democrats now are the richer white liberal party, and the Republicans got the working class, like you said.
I didn't give them a buy.
So
you
I mean,
assume
Republicans
that.
are looking out for the middle and working classes because that's where their votes come
Okay,
from.
one thing I'm going to tell you about this. There are more of them than there are you. Piss them off.
How about now, Sam? There are a lot of things the state budget pays for: roads, bridges, schools, health care. Should the libraries be treated differently? Should they have to fight for their money every year, every 2 years, rather than just get a sort of set amount?
First of all, I'm a liberal. So this answer.
You don't want anybody to fight for their money. You want to just give it to them.
No, I think that's the purpose of government, is to do when others can.
It's a finite amount of money.
And everybody's supposed to pay their rightful share.
Well, they
rich
should.
People
Yeah, rich
pay
people
more, Pay more.
They do pay more, but they should pay more, even more.
Okay. Speaking about rich people paying perhaps more, taxpayer support for the planned new home of the Cleveland Browns has moved forward. The House budget plan includes a $600 million state loan to help pay for a dome stadium in suburban Cleveland. That could cost the state up to $1 billion when you add in all the interest payments. The billionaire owners of the Browns would have to pay, as it stands now, a little more money up front as a down payment, but efforts to scuttle the plan entirely failed, at least for now. The Browns owners maintain tax revenues from the project will cover the borrowing costs. And, breaking news, the Bengals are looking for $350 million from the state to pay for renovations to their stadium. Joe Ingles, this was not a slam dunk. The House almost killed this plan, right?
They almost killed this plan. It came very close. In fact, the first time they took the vote, we were like, what? But, the thing is that the House is funding this very differently than Governor Mike DeWine wanted. And, we still see this budget going through the Senate and the conference committee and everything else. But if it appears like it is now, with the $600 million in bonds, that is something that Governor Mike DeWine has not gotten behind at this point. And he could very well veto this in the end. He won't say what he'll do, but he could.
Jake Zuckerman, he wants to tax sports betting companies, set up a fund. Still, taxpayer would support these stadiums, but he would set up a fund to help the Bears, the Bengals, the Blue Jackets, whoever else. Is he really going to veto this if it comes to his desk?
Well, just the other day on the radio, he was asked the same question, and he said something to the effect of, this is clearly not the way. His spokesman wouldn't clarify if that were a veto threat, but that's about as close as you get in these discussions. And I'd quibble with your phrasing here a little bit. You called this a loan. This is not a loan in the sense you and I get a loan and have to repay it with cash. This is a loan that is repaid with what would otherwise be tax revenue produced by the second football stadium, the second pro football stadium in the county. So I really don't like the phrasing of loan.
Bond is borrowing money, so easily explain. We could get into the intricacies of government bonds, but they're borrowing money, basically, and they have to pay interest, pay the bondholders, and things like that. But so Bob, where do you stand on this? Should they get any money?
I told you this before, Mike. No politician in the state of Ohio wants to be held responsible for the Browns leaving, okay? So take that as your initial premise. So they're going to work something out here. Now, Mike DeWine could veto. I mean, he's a lame duck. It's not like it's going to hurt him politically to veto it. But if he would veto it, then they're going to work something out, because these politicians are not going to allow this team to leave.
Do you think, Sam, the Browns are going to leave? I mean, they left once. It was a huge controversy. The league stepped in. I mean, Oakland, they left there twice.
No,
so
they're not leaving.
I mean, do you think the Browns will?
And they are going to work something out. But it's not for the good of the community. You know what? They want them complimentary.
It's not for the good of the taxpayer either.
It's the complimentary box tickets that they like. And that's what will get them to get across the line to do that.
Well, my concern is that not only do we have the problem with the Bengals coming up, but also I'm going to think, 10 years from now, Ohio State says, you know what? We're not going to be able to put a football team on the field unless we get an additional $50 million. Or the band. We can't fund the band anymore. And, politicians will, do whatever they can to save it.
Watch it.
Can I make a point here?
Sure.
We were just talking about library funding. Libraries, everyone goes to the library. If you go to the library, you can see low-income folks in there, and there's a lot of things for them. If you go into our libraries, there's a maker studio. You see small businesses. They're in there doing stuff. Libraries are for everyone. When you talk about these sports stadiums and all these other things, a lot of people can't afford a ticket to go to those things, so they don't view them. The public doesn't view the libraries in the same way they view the Browns Stadium.
So the Bengals, Jake, they say we only want half of what the Browns are getting. That's a slam dunk, right?
Well, the jokes tell themselves, but what is the logical argument to that? If they say, well, you guys gave all this money to the Browns, why can't we get some? Because they asked first? That's not really a persuasive answer. So I think it really is setting a problem of precedent going forward. Yeah, good. The Bengals are right to be cheesed here that other stadiums, their competition, their market competition is getting other payments. What about other live arenas?
Nationwide Arena needs $400 million.
Sure.
That's more than the Bengals, but less than the Browns.
What about the Haslam's other pro sports teams? What if they want some?
They got some money for the Crew Stadium or lower.com.
They got his dollars to do what they needed to do.
Yeah. How about a ticket tax? Columbus has a ticket tax that's supposed to pay. It is paying for some of the renovations to Nationwide Arena. Ohio Stadium needs some work. Ticket buyers this year are paying, I think it's $6 per ticket per game for the Stadium Preservation Fund. That's a logical way to pay for these things.
And that would get to what Joe was saying about, hey, look at the people that are actually using the stadium or the facility, and maybe have them pay for it.
But there's one thing. You just mentioned a dirty word, tax. This legislature does not like the word tax. And they have, even if it's something like, Governor DeWine wanted the out-of-state gambling operators to pay for that sports entertainment fund that he wanted. And they didn't like that. And they weren't even taxing in-state people. They were taxing out-of-state operators.
They might not like the word tax. They're perfectly comfortable with the word fees. There were $5 in new BMV fees added in the same budget, because I would say that fees they see as politically easier than a tax.
Is there a different, because let's face it, the Brown Stadium is 25, 26 years old. So chances are the loan or bonds, 30-year bonds, are going to outlive the next stadium. And the Haslams likely will sell the team. So there has to be a way the escrow account is one way. Why not tax the capital gains from selling the team after the public has financed it? I mean, there are other solutions here, right?
I have a bias here. You probably didn't notice. I worked for Franklin County Treasurer. Okay. I did. And it's an investment. It's not a tax. You use that money to improve conditions in the community. You pay for schools. You pay for library. It's an investment.
Good luck with that.
So that'll pay. The other thing is, too, have voters decide these. Maybe we can I mean, Kansas City, they shot it down.
I'm all for voters.
The Chiefs have won, how many Super Bowls, and those voters
Didn't
overwhelmingly
count, huh?
said, no, you're good where you are. So,
Have you watched the Browns play lately? I'm not sure voters would go for that.
well, who's that? It's a Democratic senator who says that we'll tie the money if they win. They get
Oh,
the-
come on. That's not happening.
That is the biggest sports bet ever placed in the state of Ohio.
They're not going to win.
Let's get to a topic that pretty much affects everybody. With rising property values leading to rising property tax bills, lawmakers are hearing about it. Homeowners are not happy, especially those on fixed incomes like retirees. The House budget plan includes some relief. Ohio is not alone. Other states are trying to find ways to cut property taxes or at least slow the increase. Of course, when the state cuts property taxes, local governments, in particular local school districts, feel the effects. Bob, you've watched the legislature and watched laws come and go in the state. This is not a new problem.
Nope.
It comes up every once in a while when the property tax bills spike.
And what does that tell you, Mike? That tells you that this is a problem that's very, very difficult to solve. And those kinds of problems never get solved because they try to go in, they try to make changes, but to make the kind of fundamental change that you would have to make, let's face it, if you're going to bring down property taxes, then something's going to go up. Whether it's a sales tax, income tax, whatever, another tax is going to have to make up for that money.
Other states, Sam, they've passed some pretty limiting property tax bills over the years. In Massachusetts, they limited it to 2.5% per year, unless the voters overrode that, which led to increased taxes. California had big, I think it was Prop 13 way back. Should Ohio be a little tougher when it comes to that, maybe?
I think the problem with property taxes is that other types of taxes are not sufficient enough to help schools. And the state never gives the schools enough money. They give them a nickel 98 and tell them to solve the problems of the world. It's not the tax, it's which tax are used for what purpose and at what rate. And I'll go back to this again. Your fair share. I have some friends whose mortgage is $800, but the actual mortgage, the whole mortgage payment is $1,400. Guess what the rest of that is?
Property taxes.
Taxes.
So, Jake, these tax increases aren't really governments, raising taxes. It's the revaluations that have led to higher tax bills because the value of the home is more, even though the person's been there for 20 years. So, but the government still benefits. Local governments still benefit from that, even though they haven't officially raised the taxes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm seeing, though, with this proposal is it's really a one-time. We're seeing this post-COVID phenomenon, really. Phenomenon's a bad word for it, but this post-COVID recurrence where these schools have these huge carryover accounts. And what's really happening here is this legislation proposes if schools have a bunch of money saved up, draining that to provide relief for taxpayers. So that will provide relief in the short run. Someone who's squeezed by those bills, those payments you're talking about now, will have relief, but it's not solving a fundamental issue that we've kicked around this table, which is Ohio has significantly reduced its income tax revenue over the past 10, 20 years. COVID money from the federal government bridged that, eased that pressure, but now there's a lot of pressure coming out on libraries, coming out on schools, coming out on people's property tax bills. And the idea of, just have less property tax revenue this time around is not feasible. You got bills to pay, we got a budget to balance. So I think we're finally facing those pressures.
So, Joe, where does this land? Where will property owners, how will they fare when this is all said and done, do you think?
Oh, gosh, that's a big question. I don't know. I think, but the thing that you got to realize is that all schools are not created equal. They have different needs, different things that they're funding. If you're building a school building, you've got different expenses. Some of the highest residuals or carryovers are over in like the Portage County area where you're talking South Bass Island and Middle Bass Island. And, sometimes they're even having to fly kids out of there to go to school. There's all kinds of expenses that we don't even know about, and that's what I want to see. I want to see the schools come in and testify on this because I think that's going to tell us a lot.
All right. Let's get to our final off-the-record parting shots. Sam, you're up first.
Taxes are an investment. The president is crazy. I hope we get through this thing Tim Snyder says there's only 3 ways out of it: a pandemic, world war, or a revolution. I hope neither of those come up.
We've already had one. Bob.
Mike, if you believe it or not, the 2026 race is on, and this week President Trump endorsed John Husted for the U.S. Senate, which wasn't all that surprising. A little surprised it's this early, but it happened.
Jake.
Tip of the hat to Ron Ferguson, a Republican from Wintersville. He used some parliamentary maneuvers on the House floor to force, I'd call a proxy vote on something close to the bonds, but it was the first and only up or down vote on the Brown Stadium that we've seen and that we might see going forward. So if nothing else, I'm glad to see names on a board and where people stand.
And Joe.
May 7th, you're going to need the real ID to fly on an airplane. But if you live in Ohio, you can still get the standard driver's license and use a passport. You do not need a real ID if you have a passport in Ohio. And we'll have more on that on our website, statenews.org.
Okay. Speaking of the Bengals, there was a Mike Florio from ProFootball.com, ProFootballTalk.com, whatever, national writer. He says the Bengals could move to Chicago and the Bears and the Bengals could share a stadium like they do in New York and in Los Angeles. It's not going to happen, but I say, why stop there? Let's invite Detroit's football team to Chicago. That way we'd have the Lions, the Tigers, and the Bears all in Chicago. That is Columbus on the Record. Oh my, that is Columbus on the Record for this week. Continue the conversation on Facebook. Watch us anytime on your time. Our website, wosu.org/COTR. We're on YouTube and the PBS video app. For our crew and our panel, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.